My son used to call me mama like it meant something, like it was a whole prayer. Now, he only remembered I existed when rent was due, lights were due, somebody's tires needed changing, or his little plans needed a signature he didn't want traced back to him. I'm 78 years old. I move slower. I forget why I walked into a room sometimes, but one thing I never forgot not once was the sound of my husband's hammer when we built our house. That steady tap-tap, like a heartbeat. That man laid every board like he was laying down protection for me, for us, for our future. And when cancer took him, I stayed in that house like a widow stays in her name. Quiet, proud, still standing. Maurice. That's my boy. My only boy. The last baby I got to keep. I buried 2 little ones before him, tiny graves, tiny shoes, tiny nightmares that never really leave you. So when Maurice came out screaming and strong, I clung to him like God had finally answered me. I was soft with him. Too soft. I made excuses the way some people make coffee every morning, without thinking. He told me he'd help. That's how it started. Just help. He'd sit at my kitchen table with my mail spread out like he was the boss of my life, tapping on his phone, saying, "Don't worry about this stuff, Ma. It's all online now. You don't gotta stress." And I liked hearing that. I did. I liked the idea that I could breathe a little, that I didn't have to squint at fine print anymore, that somebody younger had my back. So I gave him my passwords, my bank login, my email, my trust, Lord, my trust. Sometimes I'd see a late notice on the counter and my stomach would drop. And he'd smile, that easy smile. "Relax, that's a mistake. I'll call them." Sometimes my card would decline at the grocery store and I'd feel that heat crawl up my neck. And he'd chuckle like it was funny. "These old systems be trippin', Ma. It's not you." And I believed him, because believing him meant I didn't have to admit. I might have raised the kind of man who could look his own mother in the eye and lie like it was nothing. The morning it happened, I woke up early like I always do. The house was still, not peaceful, just still, like the air was holding its breath. I made coffee and stared out the window at my little front yard. My roses were thin that year. The sky was gray the way it was the day my husband died. No wind, no birds, just that flat, restless quiet. I remember thinking, something's coming. I didn't know what, but my bones knew. Then I heard the knock. Not a neighbor knock. Not a "Hey Miss Evelyn" knock. This knock had weight, authority. It sounded like somebody came to collect. I opened the door and there were 2 officers on my porch. And a man with a clipboard standing like I was a file. Like I wasn't a woman. Like I was a problem. "Ma'am, are you Evelyn?" He said my last name like it didn't belong to me. "Yes," I whispered. And my throat went dry so fast it felt like paper. "We're here on a court order. You're required to vacate the premises today." I blinked at him. Then at the officers. Then at the house behind me, like it might speak up and defend me. "There's gotta be a mistake," I said, and my voice sounded small in my own doorway. "This is my home. We paid this house off." The officer's face changed pity without kindness. The same face a nurse makes when she's about to tell you the baby didn't make it. "Ma'am, we don't make the decisions. We just enforce them. Do you have someone you can call?" My hands went to the doorframe like the wood could hold me up. My legs didn't want to work. My pride didn't want to cry. My mind kept trying to solve it like a math problem. No mortgage. No debt. No warning, or so I thought. I called Morris right there, in front of them, because I needed to hear my son say, "Mama, don't worry, I got you." He answered, cheerful, on the 3rd ring like he was sitting in sunshine. "Hey Ma, there are officers at my door," I said, and my voice cracked on the word officers. "They said I'm being evicted." Silence. Then his tone went casual. Too casual. Like he was talking about a flat tire? "Yeah, I was gonna talk to you about that." My stomach dropped so hard I swear it hit the floor. "What did you do?" I whispered. "It's not a big deal," he said. "Just a business thing that went left. I had to use your name for some filings. Temporarily, like my life was a coat you borrow and hang back up." That's when the truth slid into my chest, cold and sharp. My son didn't think of me as his mother. He thought of me as a tool. And standing in my doorway, with my coffee still warm behind me and strangers on my porch, I realized I was about to learn the hard way what happens when love makes you blind. And paperwork opens your eyes. Morris pulled up like he was doing me a favor. Not rushed, not sorry, just irritated, like my pain was an inconvenience messing up his day. "Come on," he said, jaw tight. "I got a place for you." I didn't even argue. That's the scary part. I just walked to his truck like a woman leaving her own body behind. My spirit stayed on that porch with my roses and my husband's hammer marks in the wood. The ride felt longer than it was. I kept looking out the window at streets I'd lived on for decades. And suddenly, everything looked unfamiliar, like the town had switched on me too. He parked in front of a small rented duplex with peeling paint and a yard that didn't know what love looked like. The porch rail was bent. The walkway had weeds like crooked fingers. He didn't even look at me when he said, "Back entrance." He opened the door and pointed to the stairs, like I was luggage. I cleared out the basement. He said, "It ain't fancy, but it's better than nothing." Basement. That word hit different when you're old. Basement means cold. Basement means mold. Basement means we don't care if you see daylight. I walked down the steps slow. Each step creaked like it was warning me. The air got damp and sour. A single bulb flickered like it was tired of trying. There was a mattress on the floor, no frame, just a thin pad sitting on concrete. A tiny space heater beside it like a joke. No window, no bathroom, no dignity. I stood there and my throat tightened. "Maurice," I said, quiet, "I can't stay down here." He didn't soften. He didn't even pretend. "Ma, don't start. There's mold," I whispered, voice shaking. "There's no air. I can't live like this." He crossed his arms, leaning in the doorway like he was the judge and I was the problem. "Well, it's this," he said. "Or I call a nursing home. You pick." "A nursing home." He said it like a threat. Like a cage? Like he could put me away the same way you shove old clothes in a closet when you don't feel like looking at them. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear my own voice. "You want to put me away?" He rolled his eyes. "I want you out my hair." "Ma, you don't want help." "Fine, but I can't keep babysitting your drama." That's when I saw her, his woman, standing in the kitchen doorway upstairs, watching, arms crossed, face blank, eyes on me like dust on a shelf. She didn't say a word, just stared like I was already gone. And something in me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean, quiet break, like a thread finally giving up. I looked at that basement one last time and realized, if I stayed, I would disappear down there. Slowly, piece by piece. Until I became the story people whisper about. His mama was sick. She didn't have nobody. She just faded away. So I turned. I walked up those steps. I walked out that door. And Morris didn't stop me. Outside, the air was cold, and the sky looked like it was about to cry too. My knees ached with every step. But I kept moving because staying still felt like dying. I wandered, no plan, no pride left, just a woman with an empty purse, an empty house, and a son who had made it clear. Love didn't mean protection in his world. Love meant access. I sat on a bench outside the pharmacy, shaking, staring at cars passing like everybody had somewhere to go. And that's where I heard a voice I didn't expect. "Grandma." I looked up and there was Ariel, my granddaughter, eyes wide, breathless like she'd been searching. She crouched right in front of me, took my hand like I was still worth holding. "Come with me," she said, "right now." And in that moment, right there, on that cold bench, my life split in two. The part where I kept begging my son to love me, right, and the part where I finally let somebody else save me. Ariel didn't ask questions in the car. She just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other holding mine like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. I watched the streetlights slide past the window, blinking slow, like tired eyes. My body was there, but my heart was still back in that basement. Trying to understand how love turns into leverage, we pulled up to a small house. Nothing fancy. Clean, quiet. Yellow curtains in the front window. Flower pots lined up on the porch like someone had taken the time to care. That's what broke me. Not the eviction. Not the basement. The care. Ariel helped me up the steps. I felt old then, not in my bones but in my pride. The door opened and warm air wrapped around me like a blanket. The smell hit next. Something baked. Something real. The kind of smell that says, "You're safe for tonight." "Come in, Grandma," a young voice said gently. I didn't even correct her when she used my name like she'd known me forever. I didn't have the strength. Then I saw her mother, Kayla's mom, standing in the hallway in slippers and reading glasses. Hair tied back like life hadn't knocked her down yet. She looked at me, really looked. And her voice was calm in a way my knees weren't ready for. "You're safe here," she said. That's when I cried. Not quiet tears. Not polite ones. I cried ugly. Loud. Years of swallowing hurt came out all at once. I cried for my house, for my husband's hands building that porch board by board, for my roses, for trusting the wrong person just because I gave birth to him, for thinking love meant silence. She didn't rush me, didn't shush me. Just sat there, passed me water, and let the storm pass through. When I could finally breathe, she asked softly, "Do you want to tell me what happened?" So I did. In pieces, like broken glass. The bills, the missing mail, the excuses, the knock on the door, the basement, the threat of a nursing home said like punishment. She listened the way people listen when they already know the ending. When I finished, she leaned back and said something that changed everything. "I'm an attorney." I blinked. Of course she was. Life has a strange sense of timing like that. She told me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't forgetful. I was manipulated, used, robbed slowly, on purpose, by someone who knew exactly how much I loved him. She said, "What he did isn't just wrong. It's illegal." My first instinct was still to defend him. That's the sickness of motherhood. Even after betrayal, the heart tries to clean the knife before it admits it was stabbed. But the truth had been knocking for a long time. I'd just kept the door shut. That night, I slept in a real bed. Sheets that smelled like laundry soap. A window with moonlight slipping in. Ariel stayed close, like a guard. And for the first time since the sheriff stood on my porch, I felt something small but dangerous growing in my chest. Not anger. Resolve. Because when you lose everything quietly, you don't come back loud, you come back prepared. The next morning, I woke up before everyone else. Old habit. The house was still asleep. Floors quiet, sunlight barely touching the curtains. I sat at the edge of the bed and held my hands out in front of me. They were shaken. Not from fear anymore. From adrenaline. From finally seeing things clear. Downstairs. She was already up. Coffee brewed. Papers spread across the table like evidence waiting to speak. She slid a mug toward me and didn't sugarcoat a thing. "We're going to pull your records," she said. "Bank statements, property filings, anything with your name on it. And I need you to tell me the truth, even if it hurts." I nodded. At my age, pain doesn't scare you the way regret does. By noon, the story started lining up ugly and clean. Loans I never took. A business I never heard of. My house, my paid off. Blood and memory. House used as collateral like it was spare change. Notices redirected. Mail intercepted. Court papers I never saw. He didn't just lie to me. He erased me. I stared at my name on those documents. Typed. Signed. Used. And something inside me finally snapped. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a quiet click. Like a door locking behind me. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from my son. "You need to come get your stuff. We can't keep it here. No apology." "No, are you okay?" "Just logistics." I showed her the phone. She took it gently from my hand and said, "You don't need to answer that." But I shook my head. "I do. Not to beg. Not to explain. To end it." I wore my navy coat. The one my husband bought me years ago and said made me look strong. Funny how clothes remember who you are before you forget. When I saw my son again, he looked annoyed. Not guilty, annoyed. Like I'd inconvenienced him by surviving. "You really want to take this to court?" he said. "Over family stuff." I looked at him, really looked, and I didn't see my baby anymore. I saw a man who thought love was unlimited credit. "You already took it to court," I said quietly. "I just finally showed up." He laughed. That same laugh he used when the card reader declined me. "You don't even understand how this works." "I don't," I said, "but someone does." That's when I turned around and walked away. I didn't cry until I was 2 blocks down. Not because I was broken, but because I was done carrying what wasn't mine to hold. That night, the paperwork was filed. The eviction paused. The locks scheduled to be changed. I signed my name slow and steady. Not as his mother, as myself, and for the first time in years. I slept without apologizing to anyone in my dreams. The courthouse smelled like old paper and waiting. That dry, stale air that sticks to your clothes and makes your thoughts feel heavier than they already are. I'd never imagined walking into a place like that, not to sit on a hard bench and fight my own blood. She walked beside me. Calm, steady, a folder tucked under her arm like a shield. No drama, no speeches, just quiet confidence. The kind you borrow when yours is running low. My son showed up late. Buttoned shirt, clean shoes. Looking like this was just another meeting he planned to talk his way out of. He didn't look at me. Not once. I don't know if it was shame or pride, but either way, it felt like absence. When his lawyer spoke, he said words like misunderstanding and family matter. Said I'd trusted my son willingly. Said I was confused, old, forgetful. I wanted to stand up and shout, but I didn't, because the truth doesn't need volume. She stood instead, calm as water, laid the papers out one by one, forged signatures, unauthorized loans, Mail redirected. My house tied to debt I never agreed to. She didn't rush. She didn't decorate it. She just let the facts breathe. The judge read quietly, long enough that the room felt smaller. Then she looked up and said, "The eviction is halted. Ownership remains with Mrs. Barnes pending full review." Just like that, a sentence, a pause, a crack of light. My legs shook when I sat down, not from weakness, from release. Later, outside on the courthouse steps, the wind felt different, lighter, like something heavy had finally slid off my shoulders without asking permission. My son walked past me without a word, no apology, no goodbye, and strangely, I didn't need one. That afternoon, she called me with the update. Restitution, restrictions, no access to my accounts, no control, no more games. They won't be able to touch you again, she said. I looked at my hands, old hands, working hands, hands that built a life and held a child and signed papers that took it all back. When the locksmith changed the locks, I stood on my porch and listened to the click. That sound wasn't metal, it was freedom. I didn't feel victorious. I felt awake. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet paperwork, steady breathing, and the courage to say, "You don't get to use me anymore." And as the door closed behind me, I knew one thing for sure. I hadn't lost my home. I'd reclaimed myself. The house didn't greet me like I expected. I thought it would feel triumphant, like a movie moment. Door swinging open, sunlight pouring in, me standing tall in the doorway like I'd won something. Instead, it felt quiet, heavy, familiar in a way that made my chest ache. The air inside was stale, like the house had been holding its breath while I was gone. Dust floated through the light. There were empty spaces on the walls where my pictures used to hang, pale outlines like ghosts of memories, cobwebs in corners I never let get that far before. I stepped inside slowly, closed the door behind me. The click echoed louder than it should have. I walked room to room, touching things the way you touch someone in a hospital bed. Gently, carefully. The place where my husband marked our son's height, year after year. The cabinet where I found one of his baby spoons shoved in the back, rubber handle chewed up like he'd been mad at it. I sat on the edge of my bed and let myself breathe. I thought coming back would feel like victory, but it felt like grief. Not sharp grief, not the kind that knocks you over. This was dull, heavy. The grief of realizing how long I'd been loving someone who had already left. I cleaned for 2 days straight. Not because the house was dirty though, it was but because cleaning gave my hands something to do while my heart caught up. I wiped counters like I was erasing fingerprints, washed curtains, opened windows, let air move again. I wasn't fixing the house. I was waking it up. On the 3rd day, my granddaughter walked in without knocking, like she used to when she was little. She smiled and said, "It smells like lemons in here, Grandma." I poured us tea. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where homework had been done, where I'd cried after the sheriff left, where I'd signed papers that saved me. "It feels like home again," she said. "It always was," I told her, even when I wasn't. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket over my legs and a warm cup in my hands. The moon was bright, the air smelled like soil and something new. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't fully at peace either. I was in between, and that's okay. Because healing isn't loud, strength doesn't announce itself, and real love never asks you to disappear to prove it. I'm not just a mother. I'm a woman who built a life, lost it, and had the courage to take it back. Quietly, people think revenge has to be loud. Courtrooms, shouting, someone crying on the other side of the door. That's not the kind I chose. My revenge was smaller, quieter, stronger. It was learning how to sleep again without flinching at every sound. It was checking my own mail, paying my own bills, locking my own door at night and knowing no one else had the key. It was sitting at my kitchen table in the early morning, coffee cooling in my cup, sunlight touching the same floor my husband once crossed barefoot, and realizing something simple but powerful. I was still here. My son stopped calling. That hurt more than I expected. Some nights, I still reach for the phone before I remember. Some habits die hard. Some hopes die harder. But my granddaughter still comes. She brings groceries, stories, her whole self. She listens when I talk, even when I repeat myself, especially then. And in that listening, I learned something I wish I'd known earlier in life. Love isn't proven by sacrifice alone. It's proven by care, by presence, by not turning away when someone is vulnerable. I used to think being old meant becoming invisible. Now I know better. Old age isn't a fading. It's a narrowing. All the noise falls away until only the truth is left. And the truth is this: I didn't lose everything. I lost the illusion. I kept my name, my home, my voice, and if someone listening to me right now feels that quiet fear in their chest, the one that says, what if the people I love don't love me back the same way? Let me say this, slow and clear. You are not weak for trusting, but you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to choose yourself. Even late, especially late. The light is still on in my house. And this time, I decide who gets to walk through the door. These days, my life looks smaller from the outside. Fewer phone calls, fewer holidays with a full table, fewer names written on birthday cards. But inside, it's calmer. I wake up early, not because I have to, but because my body still remembers dawn. I open the curtains myself. I water the plants my son once said were too much trouble. I move slowly, on purpose. Like every step is a decision I get to make again. Some mornings, grief still sneaks in sideways. It sits next to me while I butter toast. It asks questions I don't answer. I let it stay. I don't fight it anymore. I learned that healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about making room for it without letting it run the house. People ask if I miss him. I do. I miss the son I thought I had. The boy with scraped knees and loud laughter. Not the man who learned how to turn love into leverage. Letting go didn't make me heartless. It made me honest. And honesty, at this age, feels like freedom. Part 10, final closing, soft, reflective, lingering. If you're listening to me late at night, phone glowing in your hand, heart a little heavy, I want you to hear this. Your worth does not expire because your hair turns gray. Your voice does not lose value because you speak more softly now. Your life does not belong to the people who take from you. I spent years thinking my job was to endure, to excuse, to absorb. Turns out, my real job was to survive with my dignity intact. I didn't win by destroying anyone. I won by refusing to disappear. By standing still when the world tried to rush me out. By saying, this is mine. My memories, my home, my ending. So if you remember anything from my story, let it be this. You don't need permission to protect yourself. Not from strangers, not from family, not from anyone. The last chapter of my life isn't loud. It's steady. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.